Right, good afternoon everybody, and this is definitely one of my most favorite places to speak. This talk today is dedicated to the outliers and the people that dare to think differently. So I'm going to start off with what if the next war isn't fought with bullets? What if it's fought with pixels, with algorithms, with stories so convincing that you can't tell if they are real? Because real doesn't mean what it used to mean anymore. In the long game of history, truth always holds the winning hand. Though it may lose many rounds to immediate convenience or comfortable lies, truth plays for eternity and will eventually collect all that is owed. Hold on to that, because we're going to need it. We're not living through ordinary times, and many of you have spoken about that this morning. And Chris Hedges, one of a very good podcast I listen to, he calls 2026 the year friction shows its teeth. Constant stress between nations, AI replacing not just workers, but artists, the people who help us make sense of the world, and rational voices pushed to the margins. This isn't a bug in the system. This is the system. A new world order is being born, although I hate using that word. And most people don't even realize that they're watching its birth. Here's the paradox of our age. The world forks because lived experiences are diverging. Your reality and my reality are splitting apart. But the screens agree, because consensus can be manufactured, curated, amplified, and repeated until it feels like truth. And if we cannot agree on what is, we cannot coordinate what must be done. This is the new battleground, not territory, not resources. Reality itself. If media can simulate war, the real battleground is what we collectively finalize as truth. The philosopher Jean Baudrillard, very difficult surname to say, mapped this decades ago. He described 4 stages of how signs, images, symbols, narratives relate to reality. First, he says, the sign reflects reality. For example, a photograph of an event. Then he says, the signs start masking reality, like propaganda that distorts the truth. Third, the sign masks the absence of reality, like a simulation, pretending something exists when it actually doesn't. And fourth, the sign has no relation to reality whatsoever. We call it pure simulacrum, a copy without an original. We have entered the 4th stage, the era of pure simulacrum. Sorry. There we go. And here's what makes this dangerous. In the hyperreal, signs don't just represent reality anymore. They execute it. If a post on X moves a market, it has executed a new economic reality. If a deep fake flips an election, it has executed a new political reality. If a narrative changes what you believe about your neighbor, it has executed a new social reality. The representation has become more real than the thing it was supposed to represent. Marshall McLuhan warned us about this. He called it, big words, narcissus narcosis, a numbing of consciousness where we remain unaware of our own cognitive amputation. We extend ourselves through technology, and in doing so, we amputate parts of ourselves that we don't even notice are gone. Our ability to think, our ability to feel or discern truth. Just think about how many telephone numbers you now know on your phone, when I used to remember all of them. We don't even feel the blade that amputates our minds. So here's the question that haunts me. In a trustless world, how can we reach a single verifiable truth? Computer scientists have a name for this. They call it the Byzantine generals' problems. I'm sure many of you that are computer geeks will know about that. So imagine generals surrounding a city. They must coordinate an attack, but their messengers might be traitors. So how do you reach consensus when you can't trust the communication channel? You see, this isn't just a computer science problem. This is a metaphor for our entire society's communication crisis. There are 4 forces that corrupt our messengers. Speed. Synthetic content travels faster than verification. So by the time truth catches up, the lie has already done its work. Think of what's happening in the world at the moment. Scale. What looks like public opinion can be generated, not grown. 1,000 bots can simulate a movement. Coercion. Dissent has become expensive, not only by law, but by reputational punishment, social exile, professional destruction, and just plain cancelling out. I have a story for that. Fatigue, constant crisis. This is a big one. When there's constant crisis, constant friction, constant stress, and here's the deeper layer. In fatigue, human beings begin to stop thinking. They start borrowing thinking. They outsource their discernment, their ability to find out what's real, to an authority or a crowd or an algorithm. The screens don't have to be perfect. They just have to be constant. Think about it. So what do? Well, let me take you behind the Iron Curtain. 1978, Czechoslovakia. A playwright named Václav Havel wrote an essay that would become one of the most dangerous documents in the Soviet bloc. He wrote, and I quote, "If the main pillar of the system is living a lie, then it's not surprising that the fundamental threat to it is living the truth." Let that sink in. Havel goes to tell a story of a greengrocer, an ordinary man, and every morning he places a sign in his shop window, "Workers of the world unite." Does he believe it? No. Does he even think about it? No. He puts up the sign because everyone puts up the sign, and because not putting up the sign would make him noticed, and because compliance is the price of a quiet life. But Havel asks, what happens if just one day he simply takes the sign down? Think about that. Not a protest, not a manifesto. He just stops participating in what he doesn't believe. Havel's answer is stunning. He says, and I quote, "By breaking the rules of the game, he has disrupted the game as such. He has exposed it as a mere game. He has shattered the world of appearances. He has said that the emperor is naked. Close quotes. You see, in a system built on universal compliance with a lie, it takes only one person living in truth that threatens the entire structure. Not because they have power, but because they have withdrawn their participation from the lie. Think of the podcasters today that you may listen to in the world, those people that dare to stand on the edge of the precipice. You see, the system doesn't survive on force alone. It survives on participation. And participation is a mere choice. It can be withdrawn. Now here's where Bitcoin enters the conversation. Because Bitcoin solved the Byzantine general's problem, not with trust, not with authority, but with something Satoshi called proof of work. Nick Szabo gave it another name. He called it unforgeable costliness. What does that mean? Well, it means truth grounded in physics, not politics. Truth that costs real energy to produce. Truth that cannot be faked, copied, or decreed into existence. Because in a world drowning in cheap finality, stories that settle fast but aren't true, Bitcoin offers finality. Truth you can verify. Truth anchored in what I call, well, what is called thermodynamic reality. And this brings us to the defining question of our age. Do we build our future on sifting sands or on the bedrock of thermodynamic reality? Now here's the hinge, because if I leave you only with a warning, then I've really failed you. One of my most favorites is Buckminster Fuller, who said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you must build a new model that makes the old one obsolete." This is my North Star, but this is also Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin didn't beg for the old system to behave. It didn't petition. It didn't protest. It just built an alternative so real that it became undeniable. And that is our assignment now. When we talk about sovereignty in this community, and it was great to see sovereignty being used in the previous talk, we often mean financial sovereignty, self-custody, not your keys, not your coins. But sovereignty is much, much bigger than that. There are 3 dimensions to this, which is called a sacred triad. Bodily autonomy, where you have custody of your physical self, what goes into your body, what data comes out. Very, very important post the pandemic. Mental agency, custody of your attention, your information diet, your capacity for independent thought. Have you thought whose agenda you're actually following? Are you being influenced? And spiritual will, which is really about custody of your consent, your values, what you will and will not participate in. You see, sovereignty is not about finance. It is about health and wealth in the broadest and deepest sense. There's a reason why the 2 words, health and wealth, have only got 1 letter that changes the entire word. Without the health, you can't have the wealth, and it's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about regenerative health technology that keeps you healthy naturally without having to access the system. So here's what I want you to understand. Sovereignty is not a rebellion. It is a return. It was a return, and it is a return to who we are and were always meant to be. Before the algorithms, before the manufactured consent, before we outsourced our discernment, our ability to understand truth to the screens. The trajectory of humanity towards a flourishing future is not wishful thinking, because it is our birthright. We were born to be free, not because it was guaranteed by comfort, I understand that, but because it is guaranteed by our awakening to realize where we're at. So how do we become architects instead of victims? 5 things. Well, encryption you all know very well, which is protect your communications, your data, your financial transactions. I'm sure you're all very well afraid with that. Exit. Build and maintain the ability to leave systems that no longer serve you. And yes, I understand we cannot leave the system completely. We're in it. But choose the ones that you don't want to use anymore. Cognition. Guard your attention, audit your information sources, reclaim your capacity to think. Keep your critical thinking skills going. Protocol. Adopt systems with transparent, verifiable rules. Trust the math, not the messenger. Costliness. Anchor yourself in things that cannot be faked. Proof of work, skin in the game, real commitment. We stand again at this fork. On one path, the victim, remaining in a simulated reality, steered by algorithms and technocratic decree, sleepwalking through the hyperreal. On the other, we have the architect, my path, building a verifiable future, living within the truth, anchored in unforgeable costliness. This is not a political choice. It's not left or right. And for the record, I'm no longer a political card-carrying member. It's a choice about what kind of human being you want to be. So you choose the protocol over the propaganda. Yes, the old order is dying. Yes, there is a scrambling. Yes, there are forces trying to normalize what would have shocked us 5 years ago. But I do not believe humanity is destined for collapse. I believe the trajectory towards a flourishing future is our birthright, not because it's guaranteed by comfort, as I said, but because it's guaranteed by your awakening, I emphasize. So here's my closing invitation. This week, choose one act of custody, just one. Custody of your attention. Stop feeding the machine that feeds your fear. Custody of your words. Reclaim meaning. Stop repeating words that actually create a different outcome. Stop using words like war, etc. Custody of your data. Reduce your exposure to systems that profit from steering you. Custody of your consent. Don't comply emotionally with narratives that you haven't verified. And then build. Because when enough people stop outsourcing their reality, the screens can agree all they like. Reality will still win. So let me leave you with this. In the long game of history, truth always holds the winning hand. I thank you.
Questions? Anyone have any questions for Beverley? We've still got some time. Please let me know. I can run over with a mic. And gone. Oh, wait, we've got one over here. Okay, let me just get over here.
Beverley, you're very brave because all of the thinkers that you cited had very difficult names to pronounce. But I think you handled it well. So I just wanted to kind of unpack this idea of sovereignty. I mean, you know, and you alluded to how algorithms or fiat systems kind of tend to rob us of our sovereignty. How, in your view, can you, when you elaborated on it, but how do you start to reclaim some of that power back from the system in various domains in your life?
So I think one of the big things is we often dim our lights or our ability to actually speak out what we think. And I don't mean being rash or brash. I just really mean that very often, and particularly the middle class, have stopped speaking out about what's wrong, about what doesn't resonate, about race-based politics, accepting that what the EFF says, just because it's the EFF. It's unacceptable that our voices have been downed. So it's small things that you do every day. How can you empower yourself? Take back your power. Stop watching News 24. Stop watching News 24. It's a whole bunch of rubbish. Go into alternative podcasting. Look for credibility. Try to actually take yourself one layer down and get a perspective. If you're looking at News 24, go and look at one of the podcasters that speak more about truth. Follow the likes of alternative people. So it really is about those kinds of small steps. Russell was absolutely right. We're not meant to go and live in the bush with a water tank and no phones. It's about actually being sovereign within a city space. It's about understanding the geopolitics. It's not being caught on an image of Trump doing this and that person doing that. It really is about asking questions. And I think if you can ask questions, you'll get far closer to the truth than if you're just watching a screen for them to tell you what the television is. Okay.
One more?
Yes?
Sorry. Thank you for that. Resonated quite a lot with me, your overall presentation. I just wondered, I'll assume that you saw Mark Carney's speech at the WF where he used the take the sign down as the basis of his speech towards, what we should do about Trump. I just wondered what you thought about that at the surface level and at a deeper level where I've been having a lot of arguments with people.
I actually didn't see his direct speech, but okay. I think what's very important is geopolitics at the moment is is a narrative, okay, yeah. And it's very complex. I myself have immersed into geopolitics as an honorary consul at the moment, so I do a lot of international relations and asking and not getting caught up in silo thinking. The trade wars that are going on, the potential to create war, the EU, these systems are breaking down. And when systems break down and people start holding on and pushing back, and what's very important in all of this, I hope I'm answering your question, is that the average person, we the people, stand strong, steadfast in what we want to achieve and have, and not budge by the fear-mongering, the potential for de-dollarization, ruining us, well, of course, the attempt's going to be there. But the point is that we actually have the power. We have the power. They are terrified of our non-participation in the narrative. And I think that's key.
He used it in the sense of the West needs to just take down the sign that the US is the overall hegemony. And I thought it was quite hypocritical, sitting here as an African, and what are they doing to us? And we should take the sign down overall. Yeah. We should do it from the fiat system, everybody. But yeah, so I just wanted to understand.
Maybe Africa should ask the questions of who's really controlling the narrative here. And when you understand who controls the narrative in Africa, and actually different countries have different narratives, but perhaps who controls the narrative in South Africa from an international perspective, then you'll understand why that sign, and who has to take it down. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, can I have one? Sorry. I have a question. Do you think that people actually want to know the truth? As in, it seems like there's a small amount of people that are very interested, and then there's a large amount of people that are kind of blasé and don't really actually.
Well, I tell you, I would not want to wake up to the truth. That would be a big shock to the system. So you're going to be forced to see the truth, whether you like it or not. And I think as the system crumbles, the truth is emerging. I mean, if you think of from the horrors of the Epsteins to the whatever, you know, things are going to come out that are really going to shock humanity. I would rather know the truth and get my nervous system intact than waking up to the horror of what reality was really like in a world where we actually were slaves to the system, every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Give her a round of applause.